I'm pretty sure my brain, as I have watched this show, has devolved.
Oh my gosh, please die. Please die. Whatever it is, they've got to stop and talk.
Just believe in yourself. Okay, Care Bear, stare!
Welcome to The Right Advice. I'm Randy.
And I'm Amber. And today we're talking about, you know it, the finale of Willow the series, episode 8. Randy, first impressions.
Well, first let me say I'm so disappointed that we did not have a musical end for this.
Me too.
So I'm going to do that. And then I'm going to launch into a story about my shirt. So several of you have commented about my shirts. So this shirt was given to me by a friend who had bought it for a worst shirt, ugliest shirt contest, right? And then he gave it to me. So I'm not sure that he's really much of a friend if that's the case, because there's got to be a message there. So my take on it is, let's just burn the whole series.
Oh, it's a fitting shirt then.
Right.
I like it. Well done. All right, so my first impression is that I really have zero emotion towards what happened. And I had to take really thorough notes this time, so I'm just going to read it off rather than try to help you understand with my own words, because I'm pretty sure my brain, as I have watched this show, has devolved. I can't even articulate how I think or feel about this show anymore. Let's see. I have zero feelings towards anything that happened because nothing felt properly built up to so that anything could have happened, and it would have just made as much sense or as little sense as if any alternative thing happened. So yeah, you can't really critique something like this or even have a feeling towards complete chaotic randomness like this. So yeah, I mean, the best you can do is take independent elements and either feel good about them or bad about them. So that's my overall feeling. There was a ton of stuff in here that I thought, okay, it was good, but other stuff in there, equally, probably more so, that I felt bad about. So they canceled each other out. You know, it's like a positive one. There was always a negative one. Overall, I would say it's a negative, though.
Yes, I agree.
All right, we're going to get into our likes first. Go.
All right, so my like is that they brought in some value, and I talked about this a couple episodes ago, that a good story involves truths, universal truths. Mm-hmm. So what we have here are two examples of sacrifice. So the first is with Graydon and the crone when they're dueling, and Graydon is willing to give everything, including his life, to protect Elora Danan, mm-hmm. right? That is noble, and that people will always resonate with that kind of a storyline. That is beautiful. And then what was the other one? Kit talking with Mad Mardigan, her dad, mm-hmm. right? And for Mad Mardigan to say that sacrifice is sometimes needed and it is important. That was good. I mean, I don't like very many scenes with Kit.
Neither do I.
But I did like that one. And granted, it's because through Mad Mardigan, we brought in a core value, a truth, mm-hmm. a universal truth, and she accepted it. And that was a good scene. So
yeah, it felt like that was really the only selfless moment for Kit. Yeah. For me, okay, so likes. I said, I mainly liked that so many of my crazy predictions and theories actually came true. So yeah, and they, like I said, they were basically based off of like, this is possible, but surely the writers won't do this, but they did. So hooray for me. I'm going to go over some of them really quickly. And before I do, so what happened in the show sort of reinforces the idea for me that this had two cycles of writing, that there was a writing process and then an editing process, but then there wasn't let's go over the edits now and make sure that they make sense, that everything is, comprehensive and consistent and cohesive. And so that's how I felt about this episode. But there was one person in the comments called Tiki Dale, name there. So this is what he said. He said that this is how they make shows now. They film scenes and put them together in the editing room. As in, it's possible there wasn't even a script that started at the beginning and ended at the end, that there was just several scripts and they sort of filmed all of it. And then in the editing room, they decided what goes where. And that felt like that. So The crazy...
Okay, and that's not the way to do it.
That's not the way to do it.
Don't do it
No,
that way.
absolutely not. So out of all of that, so we're looking at individual pieces. So here were my predictions that came true that I was like, hooray, that came true. Number 1, Elora and Eric are the worm. Because at the very end of the movie, or of the show, we saw Elora, or someone who looked like her. She is now the worm, right? I mean, it's pretty predictable. And Eric, he's the worm too. So hooray. The only thing I got wrong was that Kit is also the worm. They haven't really brought back that why did she fall into the golden elixir and nothing really changed about her. Whatever, anyway. The golden elixir is the worm or the power of the worm. Now, these are mostly predictions I made in the comments of previous episodes, so there. Then I had Eric and Kit have a souped up on power showdown. So hooray, even though Kit's souped up power came from the Chimerian cuirass instead of the golden elixir, whatever. Kit gets the Chimerian cuirass, which I said would be the worst person to get it. And I think you agreed with that.
Right.
Setting up for, let's see. Oh yeah, okay, so this was something I didn't mention, but there was the scene in the previous episode where Graydon is looking at a skeleton and Elora comes up and talks to him. They're in the mist, and he basically says, you know, I'm really glad that I met you, and you know, it's sad that this is the way that things have turned out, but I feel satisfied with myself. Like he's letting the audience know that he's at peace with the world, and that's like, okay, you're dead. But anyway, I didn't mention anything because I thought, are the writers even smart enough to realize that that's a way to like set up somebody dying? But it maybe, whatever. It was a little obvious, but then I had Elora. Oh yeah, Elora basically almost executes Eric. Because remember, I just briefly said like, oh, or Elora's going to have to execute Eric, you know, because he'll be the worm. That kind of happens. She tries to kill the crone, but Eric throws himself in front of the blast and basically dies or almost dies. So that happened. And let's see. We are left with a cliffhanger because the worm is still alive in the disguise of Elora and has now recruited Graydon. And the last thing I had was, and I'm really happy this happened, Eric makes out with the haggard crone. I thought that was so funny. I was like, they're not going to do it. They are. He's going to make out with the crone when she's all disgusting, but he's under the illusion that she's beautiful. So
I thought it was gross.
It was disgusting, but like I said, I threw this out there.
I didn't find it funny. I found it gross.
Oh, I found it ironic that something I thought would be ridiculous legitimately happened. So anyway, there you go. That's all. I just had to mention all of those things because I needed to, like,
because
these were the
she wants to
ridiculous
brag about how smart she is. That's
Possibly.
why she had to mention them all.
Mainly, I want to point out that the things I thought were the most ridiculous are the things that ended up happening. Anyway, that's all I had on likes. Do you have any more? Other than that, then we got the favorite scene.
No, I think that was it.
Okay. Favorite scene. Oh, do we want to do dislikes first and then favorite scene? I think we should do favorite scene.
Let me just go. I mean, I'm going to do likes, favorite scene, because it's pretty much the same thing. So the scene with Graydon sacrificing himself in the duel with the crone was my favorite scene because it felt genuine. They've properly built this up. So we've seen Graydon throughout the series so far have an infatuation with Elora Danan, right? And my prediction for next season, we'll focus on that as well. But to me, that was good. He was noble. He sacrificed. It was appropriately done. They did not ruin it by making any jokes during the middle of that sequence. So it worked out very well.
Yeah, and they definitely could have broken it up with jokes because they were breaking everything else up with stupid jokes. Ugh, so annoying. And we're not mentioning everything that happens, but because we really could stop and pause, and we paused a lot. What should have been taken as an hour to watch at most ended up taking like 2 hours to watch this whole episode because we were constantly pausing and going, what? My favorite scene was, other than Eric kissing the crone, was, I liked that, was...
yeah, I'm going to go to sleep at tonight and I'm like, oh, that was such a beautiful scene.
I just loved that it happened. Yes. Oh, could not be any worse than this. So I liked the same one that you liked, the one that you didn't mention, which was the scene with Kit talking to Mad Mardigan, or Mad Mardigan talking to her. And his exact words are that love is sacrifice. You've got to be willing to give up what you want for what you believe in. And I thought that's the first time that I have heard one of these characters really define what is good and a goal that you should be aiming for. Whereas up until now, it hasn't really been based in any good versus evil. It's been, let's go save the prince, but then all these distractions on the way, and oh, I don't want to be a princess, and I don't want to be a Laura Dannon, and I like this girl, but she doesn't like me, and I know everybody's in a fight to the death, but I want to have a conversation about that right now. This was the first time that somebody took a universal truth about good and evil and how you should live your life, and it meant something, because they followed through with it after that. She decided, okay, I'm going to self-sacrifice for the sake of this. Or at least she seemed to think that way. And I made a note about this favorite scene. But then when it was stated that you are Laura's shield and sword, so that's what Madmartigan says to Kit, this ends up not really making sense, because Kit frequently attacked Alora in order to save her brother, who we didn't believe she really wanted to save in the first place, because she literally said that she didn't care about him at one point when she was talking to Sorsha. There was no vulnerable show of guilt and regret for how she treated him that would make us believe that this was actually her motive during this entire rescue mission. Like that, oh, I have to make up for, how badly I treated him. All we ever saw of her was being a jerk to everybody, blaming everybody for, slowing down her rescue or whatever. But the only thing she really talked about was herself. And she only cared about, I want Laura Jade, I want her to know that I love her. I want her to be here for me. It was all self-centered stuff with her. And, I don't want to be a princess. I want to go and do my own thing, which actually is the thing that the crone always said she wanted to do. Remember when that conversation with Eric? Yeah. So then we never see a decision on Kit's part to actually protect Alora, ever. Like that conversation with Madmartigan, it seems to be like from there, she's like, all right, now I'll go and protect him. So why would he say you're going to be the shield and the sword? So the choice on the waterfall.
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
So that is good. I'm going to be the shield and the sword. That is a vow of dedication, right? Which is another core value, right? So selflessness, right?
Mm-hmm.
And also alluding to sacrifice in the future. So that's all good. The fact that they don't follow up with it in the rest of the show, that's where it loses its impact. So all by itself, that is a good scene.
Yeah, it is. But yeah, like you said, afterwards, that doesn't really happen. And before that, it doesn't really happen. So I was trying to figure out, when did she make this decision, right? So I'm going backwards. So we've had the conversation with Madmartigan where he calls her the shield and the sword. Let's go backwards. The choice on the waterfall where she grabs Alora and says, we'll go together, and we jump over. Well, that doesn't make any sense, because why would she do that? And I go, okay. She has the scene in the stars where they're standing and she goes, oh, I was jealous of you. And Alora goes, well, I think your dad has always loved you. Because that scene didn't make sense. Why would she go and be vulnerable like this to Alora at that moment? So that didn't make sense. Okay, why does that not make sense? And then I go, well, because the scene right before that, where the two of them have a meaningful interaction, is when they're in the mine and Kit is yelling at her saying hey, the problems in the world are your fault. Everything is because of you. There's never been a moment where we actually see her have an internal change. So I said I wanted her to kind of recognize in herself that there was something wrong with her. What she had been doing all this time, this selfishness is wrong, and that maybe she should, think about other people. You just never really see that. So I've never believed any of her actions up until now. And that's why I just didn't believe it. And then so afterwards, after she talks to Madmartigan, and then he says, you're going to be the shield and the sword. I was like, okay, maybe this is the inciting moment for her where she decides to change. She's like, okay, I'm going to be the shield and the sword. But then later on, you'll see that she gets the Chimerian cuirass, but it's not to save Alora. She gets the Chimerian cuirass to save her brother. But I thought she was supposed to be the shield and the sword for Alora, not for her brother. Anyway, that doesn't make sense. So even though it counted as, it was part of my whole my favorite scene stuff. Look at it. I give a favorite scene. I like that we had the scene with Madmartigan and telling her about, love is sacrifice. But I didn't like anything that came before it or afterwards, and it made no sense within the context of this show. I'm exhausted. I'm so exhausted from this show. So I'm really glad that the second season doesn't happen immediately afterwards, like that we have to wait for hopefully a year, or if ever, hopefully second season doesn't get made. But I'm glad because I don't think my brain can handle this anymore. It's just dead. My brain's dead.
A mind is a terrible thing to waste. Yeah, that's right. That's from an old commercial. So if you remember that, you're old.
Do we want to get into dislikes now?
I do.
Okay, let's go. Go ahead.
Oh my gosh, could they talk anymore? I don't think so.
Yes.
I don't know that I've ever seen a show so intent on just randomly talking every scene. If we've got to fight, you know what? They've got to stop. Actually, literally stop and talk. Whatever it is, they've got to stop and talk. I was so tired of it. So in a lot of ways, for me, this was the worst episode of the entire series because I got tired of them talking about it. Amber mentioned that no emotion, right? Right. Because you know what? I'm like, just shut up. I'm numb now from all the talking, and it would have been better. So when I get my rating, it's because of all the talking.
It sounds like you're coming over to my side, the dark side.
No. I will stay on the polite side.
Oh, the polite side. You can be polite.
Okay, I'll be the polite side. I like that better. I'm going to be on the polite side.
You said light side. Like,
I said light, but you can be
polite.
I can be polite. I can be refined, dignified.
Dignified in your utter rage and disappointment.
So I guess if I'm going to do that, I'm like, well, there was just a little too much talking, just a little bit.
How'd you like that beginning part with the two girls constantly flipping and flipping and flipping when they were talking to Eric for the first time?
At first I thought it was stupid, then I got it because I'm kind of slow. They were watching his other's back, so they would circle so that they both were facing enemies, and allowing one to talk to the crone at a time. So once I got it, I'm like, okay, that's actually kind of cool.
Yeah, I thought that it made sense. Like, I picked up on what it was, but it was comedic. This should have been a very tense moment. They're talking to Eric for the first time. They're seeing him for the first time, and clearly he's not the victim that they thought he was. And we had a debate while we were watching over what their reaction was. I was like, they look like they're weirded out. And Randy was like, they look like they're afraid of him, and none of this makes sense. And I said, well, you can't really tell. This is such a jumbled scene with what the emotion is supposed to be that two people who are studying this couldn't figure out what the hell was supposed to be going on.
Because Kit, brother gets up close and Kit's like, to me that was like more like, I'm scared of you. That, and weird, I guess, is okay. You can be scared of weird people.
Yeah, I didn't catch that they were scared, but that they were weirded out because there was a moment there where Kit kind of smiles, but then the smile goes away right away. And I'm like, oh, they should have been really scared of the Gales, because the last time they saw the Gales, last two times they saw the Gales were trying to kill them. And
they were not. They had almost no reaction to the Gales.
Yeah, except, oh, we're on guard against you. Shouldn't you be like, quick, kill them before they kill us? Oh, so obnoxious. Any more stuff that you didn't like?
Yes. So Borman originally was my favorite character in the show. I loathe that he is in any scene. Yep. Because he's got to turn everything into a sex joke. Okay. Yeah. And just, and I'm not being Puritan about it. I'm just like, it's tired. It would be the same if he turned everything into a food joke, or everything into, I don't know, a costuming, a fashion joke. It gets old. And it makes him a less of a character, makes him very sophomoric, right? Mm-hmm. So I can't take him serious. And I'll give you a good example of doing this, but in a positive way. So any of you have seen Predator, one of the characters is always telling dirty jokes, all right? But he tells them, I would say at the appropriate times, not something serious isn't going on, right? It does a little bit to break the tension. The jokes, everyone reacts to the jokes like, oh my gosh, really? Please don't tell us any more jokes, right? And it worked. So, I mean, you can get away with something like this if it's done right, but this isn't. It's just, if I see his face, I'm like, oh no, there's going to be some sex comment about it, and it's just going to ruin the tension. It's going to ruin the mood, and he just looks like a buffoon at this point.
Yeah, he really was obnoxious through the entire episode. He was pointless, really. I mean, he wasn't even there, part of the action, except as another person fighting people.
Well, and then he's like, I'm going to go out there, and I'm going to go out of the world the way I come in. And I'm like, oh my gosh, please die. Please die.
Oh, nice. Yeah. Did anybody get the joke about butter? Who's got the butter? Was that a sex joke that I didn't get?
Sex joke. Okay.
I mean, okay, I can kind of get it, but it was a stupid one.
I'm just guessing, because he only makes comments about sex things, right? So insert whatever sex jokey thing that you know about butter, and that's probably what they were talking about.
It's so dumb. I didn't get it, and I sat there and tried to think, like, do it. No. It just...
No, it's probably better that you don't think about it too much.
Probably. Oh my gosh. Okay, dislikes for me. Let's see, I have a lot, but not too bad. Okay, here we go. Again, I dislike parts within the parts, but it's hard to find real dislikes when the whole thing is just chaos. So, I didn't believe anything that happened. I didn't believe that Laura was ever really being tempted in her dream, like when she was in the dream, beyond the Golden Gate or whatever the hell that was. I didn't believe that she was actually being tempted. So when it was revealed that she wasn't, I was, I don't feel the same way about you as I used to. I'm not into you anymore. Like, yeah, we kind of got this. It was too forced. It felt too fake. If I'm not convinced, if the audience is not convinced that they are presenting her with a good enough story for why she should switch sides, it just is obvious, and it's a fake out.
All right, since you touched on this, here's the thing. So in the movie, the baby Laura Dannon has instinct. At least that's how it came to me, right? She has a natural instinct. So she's been developing. If she got back to the point where she was as a baby, she would instinctively know immediately that this all was fake. And for me, that just felt unrealistic.
Yeah, it just felt so forced. And so you're watching a scene play out with impatience because you're like, okay, get this nonsense over with. We know it's fake. We know you're trying to tell us that, we should believe it, but none of us do.
She's tempted, and was like, no, she's not tempted.
Yeah. Then, let's see, I've got, oh yeah, and Willow's temptation also. So remember how he doesn't jump over the waterfall and he walks away, and we're supposed to think that he's going, back to his daughter. I didn't believe that for one reason. We didn't know that this was something that he was struggling with until the episode before. And we didn't really see evidence of him struggling with it up until now, at least not consistent evidence that he was struggling with this until now. So it felt like episode 7 and 8 were part 1 and part 2 of the same episode. So anything that was introduced in 7, I was like, I don't believe it. They've said that he's worried about his daughter because they want to fake us out later when he's on top of the waterfall going, I can't go with you. You guys have to go on your own. I didn't like that he was the Deus Ex Machina, even though I knew it was coming, because when he comes in and rescues everybody, like, surprise, I came for all of you guys. I know you thought I had abandoned you at the waterfall, but here I am.
Oh, the waterfall. Don't want to talk about the waterfall for just a moment.
Okay.
More the talking. Oh my gosh. So Laura Dannon and Kit have already gone over the falls. And so what are you going to do? You're a band of adventurers or heroes, right? You're either going to follow them or you're going to leave. You're not going to talk about it for 15 minutes. But they did.
Yeah.
And by pairs. It's like, so Jade and...
Borman. Or no, Jade and Graydon.
Graydon talk about it for a huge amount of time. And then they jump, right? And then Borman and Willow talk about it. It's like, no. Just go. Please, just go if you're going to go.
It was obnoxious. Obnoxious to the point, whatever. Anyway, like I said, how can you have dislikes or likes about something that makes no sense?
Well, all right, and like Randy, we're expecting you to tell us why, storytelling-wise, that is frustrating. Okay, so storytelling-wise, that should be a tense scene, right? And ideally, you have maybe very short comments, a line, or maybe each person gives a line, and they go over the edge, right? Because we don't know what's at the bottom. So it'd have been way more effective to have the first people go, and we don't know that they're okay, and then get that. Of course, we already know they're going to be okay, but that's the idea. That builds tension, right? You talk and talk and talk, that tension just drops. And you're like, okay, I'm going to go get popcorn, or whatever. I'm going to go read an encyclopedia, something more interesting until it moves on. So it kills all tension.
Totally agree. Totally killed the tension. Also, if they had led up to this moment, so if I don't know why, was it Jade somebody said, oh, it takes a leap of faith to get to the immemorial city, right? And Willow's like, yeah, it could be. When was it ever brought up that it would take a leap of faith to get to the immemorial city?
Okay,
how did they just figure that out?
If you do what I said, they go over and one by one they come up with their own reasoning why they're going to go. It takes a leap of faith. Okay, I'm okay with that, right?
Okay, I can see that.
All right, I got it. That's good. One line, boom, they go. Then we go to the next person. Are you going to go or are you not going to go, right?
Okay, well, I have to protect Alora. I'd do anything for her. And then he goes. And
then
Borman, I have to make something out of my life. I can't just be a nobody. And then he goes. Yeah,
right.
It was unfocused, though. There was no focus on distilling what this moment should have been for each one of the characters. So it just felt like chaos, and then they jumped.
Boring. Wait, really boring.
Boring.
Chaos.
Let's see. I have that there were a lot of pointless things that happened. So
the entire series.
Yeah, really the entire series.
There was a lot of pointless things.
Okay, so I have Jade has no purpose still. So she supposedly jumps off the waterfall to protect Alora. Like she kind of says, like, I'm going to protect her. Like, who's going to protect Kit? That's going to be me. And then later in the episode, she's in the fight in the temple, and she goes, Kit, a little help here? So she's not helping Kit do anything. She's the one who needs help. She was no help. I'm really disappointed in Jade's character. I mean, she was very pointless on this whole thing. It would have been so much better if she was the badass warrior and all the others were like clearly a level beneath her and they relied on her to be, the warrior, but they didn't do that. Then I had to, let's see, the pointless camouflage. Like, why did that have to happen? Remember when they're like, how are we going to get into the city? Like, and he puts mud all over his face. He says camouflage. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
Did that make any sense? And then they show up
I've already forgotten it because it had nothing to do with
it served no purpose.
Story. It was a gag.
It was a gag. It absolutely was a gag. A really pointless gag. I had the people know stuff again that they shouldn't know. So Alora, for some reason, knows that Graydon shouldn't use the wand. Right? Like, he picks it up and she goes, no, Graydon, don't! Like, she knows what's going to happen if he uses it.
The world will implode. That's my guess.
How did she know anything bad would happen? And nothing did. He used the wand and nothing really happened to him. He got blown away by the crone afterwards, but I mean, I just don't, like, it wasn't because he used the wand, it was because the crone decided to attack him. Then we've got, Willow knows, this was a big one for me. Willow knows what Mad Mardigan has been doing all this time. He says something along the lines of, Mad Mardigan left to go fight the worm from within. How did he know this, and why didn't he bring it up before?
It's like when they're with the trolls, right? They get they're at the castle. No, I'm sorry. It was the trolls, right?
Who knows?
They're at the trolls and like, oh yeah, this was the Curious is here. Really? And
nobody decided.
And Mad Mardigan's here.
Yeah.
Really? Why haven't we found this out before? And why wasn't this initially your destination, right?
Yeah.
So it felt like the same kind of thing. We just get these revelations, and if you knew this all along,
why didn't you say something
Why
before?
didn't you say something?
Yeah. Oh my goodness. He also knew that for some reason that Mad Mardigan wanted Kit, or at least one of his children, to protect Alora. So that. I don't know. It just, why didn't he tell that to Kit and instead of Allagash? Why did Allagash have to be the one to tell Kit this?
I don't know.
Don't know. Okay, let's go on. Let's see. Willow tells Alora to believe in herself. Like, she's in the middle of the battle with the crone.
Boys and girls, that is always good advice. Believe in yourself.
She's all confident and she's attacking the crone, and it's not working. She's not quite beating her. And then Willow's like, she's like, I don't know what to do. Everything I'm trying is not working. He goes, all you have to do is believe in yourself. And she goes, oh, okay. And she does it. Her strategy doesn't change at all. She's still just throwing lightning at the crone. And so in the movie, when this happens, Willow throws the acorn that Bavmorda catches, and her arm starts turning to stone, and he's like, yes, that's working. And she's like, and then she's like, oh, it doesn't work. Is that the extent of your powers, little one? And he has to regroup. He goes and hides, and he comes out, and he changes his strategy. He does the disappearing pig trick to convince her that he has some magic that's beyond her reckoning, and it throws her, she just is out of her mind and ends up dying. That is a good new power tool.
Okay, and that's a standard in writing. So the hero needs to change. They need to change their behavior, because it's stupid to think that you continue to do the same thing and get different results, right?
Yeah.
There's that madness. That's the definition of madness, that you continue to do the same thing and expect different results, or whatever what the case might be, right? So you have to change in order to defeat the enemy, or whatever the enemy, and that could be metaphorical. It doesn't have to be an actual physical being. It could be an addiction. It could be whatever the enemy in that story is. You have to change. And that resounds with all of us, resonates with all of us, because we understand that that's really how you overcome problems, is you have to change the way you think about it and the way you act towards it. So that's why in these fights, it is so important. Hero is losing, and they try something new, and that works.
Yeah, and you can say, like, oh, but she did change. She suddenly started believing in herself. Well, just like a few seconds before in that same fight, you saw her doing this cool thing where she's like, manipulating the lightning before her, and then she throws it. She seems very confident, like she believes in herself at that point. And then suddenly he's like, oh, just believe in yourself, again. and it works. That it doesn't make sense that the same thing done twice, like you said.
It's the cheerleader effect. That always makes things better. Rah, rah, go, 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 go.
You can do it!
You can do it!
I kept thinking of, it's very juvenile writing. To me, I was reminded of the Care Bears. Remember that cartoon, the Care Bears? With the Care Bear stare? Like, just believe in yourself. Okay, Care Bear stare! Again! And then it works!
Now I'm thinking of Waterboy, and you know what? We need Rob Schneider, and they're going, you can do it!
Oh,
and then that would have been excellent. No, I'm not talking to you.
Yeah, I kept on, I should say, stupid me for, thinking that the writers would have done something good with this moment. But no, it makes perfect sense that the way that Elora would defeat the crone is by doing the same exact thing that she was doing before she figured out how to beat the crone. Oh my goodness, it makes no sense. Okay, I didn't like that colorful lightning. It was very boring, and it was all that they did. There's no measure of power in the lightning. Which bolts are more or less powerful? So in the movie, we have the first time we see magic, it's the stone being turned into a dove. Then we have people being transformed into animals, and animals transformed into other animals, and animals transformed back into people. And then we have the use. It's basically like the Force when Bavmorda says something she casts a spell on Sorsha, who's attacking her. And Sorsha's levitated up into the air and basically thrown across the room. Then we have Rizal and Bavmorda shooting ice and fire at each other. And then Rizal is shooting Bavmorda all over the room and slamming into the ceiling. And then it devolves into, I love it, a battle between two old ladies, wrestling over this wand. And the result is that you're seeing like an incense burner comes alive, like, animating an inanimate object. You could see a measure of the type of power that there was. And with the lightning bolts, first of all, it's boring. It's just different colored lightning over and over and over again. And there was no measure of what was more powerful or not.
It's also lazy writing.
Yeah.
Okay, so we can't think of anything interesting to happen in the battle, so it'll just be like lightning. And maybe it'll be different color lightning. Okay, this one's going to be red lightning, and this one's going to be blue lightning.
Yeah.
And maybe we could come up with something more creative to do than, we do lightning. So Yeah, you're right. It was
Yeah.
boring. I'm like, I don't care.
It was so boring. It was just bland. It was like, and honestly, I didn't, the final kill that takes out the crone, that it didn't seem any more spectacular of magic lightning than the magic lightning we saw earlier. I actually thought some of the magic lightning we saw earlier was more interesting, like when it was wrapped around her fingers and she was doing this. So stupid battle, no escalation whatsoever. It was dumb. Let's see. Kit turns into Iron Man. I mean, I could believe that, except that all I could think of was Iron Man. Like, oh, the Chimerian cuirass is just the Iron Man suit. It looked cool. I thought it looked cool.
So maybe Tony Stark will come in next season.
I think Robert Downey Jr. has better taste. Even if he was out of his mind, he would know I should stay away from this series.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Let's see. Eric feeling alone. Oh yeah, was never built up to. So the thing that Kit does to reach out to her brother when she's finally physically defeated him and she's trying to save him is, I know you feel alone, but I'm here for you, blah, 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 like this. We've never really seen him up until this point really struggling with, I feel alone. At least it was not clear until I was like, is that what, that's what his problem was supposedly, that he felt alone? That was out of the blue. Let's see. Graydon, still alive and now a recruit for the dark side. If you're going to kill off a character in such a noble way, there's nothing that's going to pull the meat out of that than say, oh, he didn't really die. So I don't believe that he's going to turn evil. I don't believe there were any consequences for his sacrifice. So his sacrifice is ultimately meaningless.
Yeah, you know what? I kill characters off frequently in my stories because a good story really needs a meaningful sacrifice. So,
Yeah, and a sacrifice that actually has an effect.
right.
So if a sacrifice is made, it should be really gone. There should be, whatever they sacrifice should be gone to that person in some way. So if Graydon is still alive after all of this, and he's still the same person after all of this, it was not a sacrifice at all. So fake out sacrifice again. Let's see. So I had a comment, and this is actually relating to one of our commenters, somebody who commented on this. I thought this could be an attempt, this whole show could be an attempt at hard character building, but soft world building. But it's all been done wrong. There needs to be consistency and progress that makes sense. Major changes shouldn't suddenly and out of nowhere or through magic come about. There's a YouTuber called Local, and I'll put a link somewhere that maybe in the description. He's got something to say about this, and I think it really resonates with the thing that these writers did wrong. Characters are finite. They exist within the limited realm of relevance to a story. So yes, people in real life are unreliable and they often don't progress in any logical way, but in a story, they need to, and we need to see the logic of everything that happens and how it fits directly into the main story. So I think somebody once said, or I don't know who said it, but I saw somebody talking about how people expect more realism in their characters. And there's a problem with that. And the problem is shows like this. People don't believe it. Nothing makes sense. And you could say, well, it's reflecting reality, real life. We don't watch movies and read books with fantastical stories to experience real life again. You do it to kind of escape from it, I think. So anyway, I had to bring that up.
Okay, I remember my phrase. So this is something that I teach. Okay, and I talked about it, but now I remember the actual phrase. So there is no meaningful victory without sacrifice.
I like that. Yeah. Let's see. The last thing that I've got now is predictions.
I have something else.
Oh boy. Okay.
Okay, so I got thinking about it, and what we see here at this at the end, the second half of this episode, is the crone attempting to deceive them. All right, and I'm thinking, like, actually, That's a good idea. So the original movie is about the forces of evil physically trying to overwhelm and crush opposition. So the series, I mean, that could have been an extremely smart
Mm-hmm.
move that throughout the series that we lead up to the deception. Bring them in, make them want to stay, make them the uh, guard keeper, the prison keeper of their own prison, right? It's only them that keeps themselves there. I mean, so that's got such a much more delightful twist to it, right? And it flows differently. So the series, we're trying a different approach because just going out there and fighting them with swords and magic isn't going to work. We
Yeah.
have to do something different. This series, if it had really focused on that element to begin with, I think could have been really good.
Yeah, but instead they had Deus Ex Machina. They had, well, I'll just defeat her by believing in myself. And
You can do it.
oh my gosh. Oh. Okay, so not so much a prediction, just an observation of how it could have been and maybe how we hope it will be in the future.
Right. So, I mean, that's what I think they could have done and really done well with it. So my prediction is that season 2, if they have one, will, I think there might actually be a season 2.
Nepotism. Somebody's related to somebody, or maybe there's some shenanigans going on behind the scenes. We're like, oh yeah, I'll do anything for you if you'll do anything for me.
I mean, I think
two.
I think I would play off of the fascination Graydon has with Elora Danan, right? I would really play that. He's the big bad guy now, and his magic seems to be rivaling that of Elora Danan.
Yeah.
So he's very powerful, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he knows way more about magic than she does.
Yeah, and seemingly Willow.
And apparently Willow, right? So I think I would really play off of that. I'm sure that I could develop a pretty interesting second season based off of that and how she eventually recruits him back to the light side, the polite side.
The polite light side.
Polite light side. All right, so that's what. But unfortunately, all the other characters, they've reached their character arc for the season, however tiny and minor it might be. They've reached it.
Yeah.
And they haven't set up anything moving forward. So I can't. So I think that maybe we'll just see the same silliness that we're seeing this season, and it will be more unbearable because they haven't set up anything for a future character arc.
Yeah, and so one of the ways that you can fix this is by introducing new characters, and that's literally something that they said in the very end was that it'll be like a snowball. Like they referenced the snowball that Mad Mardigan turned to in the movie. That new people will come on board. So I think there's going to be new characters. They're going to have to. They're going to have new characters. You cannot continue this story if the majority of their problems have been resolved without introducing new elements of discord. Go ahead.
Maybe so go way back. We got the Gold Rush gals in the forest.
Okay.
And they talked about Elora Danan raising an army. Maybe that was the purpose of that scene, which otherwise has no purpose in this series at all. Maybe at season 2, Elora Danan starts that collecting of that army to go up against
I'd like that.
Grayson. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. That kind of gets into one of my predictions. So new characters. I think Graydon is not going to be fooled by the fake Elora. I think he's going to be a mole. He's going to realize that he's still alive and like, oh, I can just pretend I'm still with her. And then he'll be the one who kills the fake Elora.
Okay.
And then the fake Elora. Oh yeah, Willow saw it. Oh yeah, okay. Willow, when he had that vision of Elora dead on the battlefield, and he said, no matter what happens, the only way to defeat evil is I see Elora dead on this battlefield. Like she has to die. I think the one he sees dead is the fake Elora.
Ooh.
Yeah. So there's that. And
I did not see that.
And honestly, they don't have to go that way, and whatever they do would still make sense because nothing they have done up until now makes sense.
No, that would be that nice twist.
Yeah.
I mean, you really, at the end of a story, you really want kind of a twist, and that would be it.
It would be. It definitely would be. Except, I'm not going to get into how I feel about this show because it's exhausting. Let's see. Oh yeah, so I think I may have missed this when Willow first acknowledges Elora is Elora. Remember, he's like, "You're Elora Danon, Empress of Tears Lane, blah 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 blah." Did he mention something about her having Chimerian blood? Because I think it's mentioned at this point, at the end.
I think that he did.
Okay, well then she's Fae. If the Chimerian cuirass, that thing that was made by a person who is of the Fae, then she is of the Fae as well.
And you would expect that. I mean, she's being protected by the Fae, right?
Yeah.
And she is magical, so that would make sense within the scope of the original movie.
Yeah.
That totally makes sense.
Yeah. Okay, are we going to do ratings now before we go on to the final notes about...
Okay.
Yeah.
I know that Hog, you're going to want me to check into a
mental hospital.
Mental hospital for this, right? I'm going to give it a 5 because there were some good moments.
Yeah.
And for a while, I did think, who was it that died? I thought Borman was going to die.
And you were hopeful. You had a moment of hope.
I had a moment of hope.
I was hoping he would die, so that hope that lasted the length of the episode until I realized he wasn't dead.
Yeah, that was... yeah.
Nice. The fleeting moment of hope that you had, that deserves a 5. I'm going to give this one a 3.
That high?
Yeah, it's pretty high. But,
okay.
I'm giving it a 3 mainly because I got to see so many of my ridiculous predictions come true. And Eric making out with the hag was great. So, let's see. I think that's what we got. Well, all we've got for that. But
right.
We want to make some notes. So, if you would like to sit back and just laugh at the ridiculousness of this show, we highly recommend that you go check out Geeky Old Hog. I'm going to have a link to his channel down in the description. I also appeared in a podcast with Geeky Old Hog about a week ago. So you'll find a link to that also in the description. And Randy, we're going to get you on there with them because you guys have a lot of knowledge of superheroes and comics and things like this. Good storytelling. It was so fun. That podcast was so fun. So I highly recommend going and checking it out. We talk about all kinds of things and keep your eyes open for when we do it again. Let's see. Now, if you're like me and you need some catharsis, I recommend going and checking out Disparu's channel. He has taken this series, Willow, and shredded it scene by scene with all the things that you could possibly laugh at for being ridiculous, just exposed, totally naked. What was the Mormon said something about being naked?
So I love watching his, and for me, he's a comedian.
Yeah.
Okay, a very clever comedian because the way he delivers it, fast-paced, right? Zinger, 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 and the things that he notices to be able to make fun of is it shows how smart he is. Mm-hmm. So I just look at him as an entertainer that just happens to dabble in reviews. Yeah.
Yeah, I really enjoy his stuff after we've seen an episode because to me, it's healing to see someone beat this show up as badly as I want it to be beaten up. Let's see. Last thing I want to cover is our upcoming videos. So we have reviewed National Treasure episode 1. Whether we do more will depend on the reception of this episode. So in a couple of days...
Not this episode we're recording.
No, the...
Episode 1 of National Treasure,
right.
Which we're releasing later in the week.
Yes. I'm trying to decide if I'll release it on Friday or Saturday. Probably Saturday. But keep an eye out for that. Then the next thing that we're going to be reviewing is, and we think we'll probably do more than one review, we'll do an episode by episode, is The Last of Us. A highly anticipated show based off of a video game. Has the creator of Chernobyl involved, but from what...
Not the science guy. The show.
The show, which was really good.
Because it'd be really boring to have some geeky science guy up there telling us about nuclear fission and everything.
Or about zombies, because that's what the show was about. So Geeky Old Hog and his friends told me that they know a little bit more about the making of this show than I do, and their expectations sort of dashed mine. So we'll see how it goes. Other shows that we have on our list include The Mandalorian and some other movies that we have seen, like Avatar 2, and possibly we'll look at Rings of Power. But mainly, if you guys talk about it in the comments. So we want you guys to comment. Tell us what you think that we should be reviewing next, because that gives us a direction for where we're going to take this channel. Other than that, what we have planned are some classes where we're going to discuss specifics about writing techniques. Randy is a teacher of storytelling, so he's got some really, really good ideas on what we can do to help writers improve their own writing and not make the kinds of mistakes that the writers of Willow have made. So anyway, I think that's it, yeah?
I think so.
All right, well, we hope you enjoyed Willow more than we did, but anyway, we'll see you next time.
Later.